Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Daily BizLink. Jane Cebrynski is back, and today we're talking about turning chaos into calm. So, Jane, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Lindsay. So let's start with a 10 moment.
My 10 moment. Well, this week I have been working really hard on some strategic planning and thinking and planning for the future, which the more I can kind of start planning, that makes me feel a little bit better. So that's been my 10 moment of the week. Nothing too exciting there, but checking off some of that stuff from my list certainly does make me feel a lot better.
'Tis the season. Well, I think that ties in actually nicely with the conversation I wanted to have today about, the sense of overwhelm and what I have been hearing and experiencing through conversations and with some of my clients. And so I thought, you know what, this is a good opportunity to piggyback on the conversation we had last week about words and the energy and the power that words have for either a positive or negative consequence. And words oftentimes, they do, not oftentimes, but they do have images, they have experiences that we attach to them. And overwhelm, I think, is one of those words that immediately conveys a lot of imagery, depending on our experiences around it, and certainly has a tremendous impact on our emotional management and our energy management. And so what are some tools and some skills that we can implement when we start to have that feeling?
I think this will help a lot of people, especially as we like to go into the holiday season.
Oh my gosh, definitely. And that brings up a good point too, because first of all, everybody's definition of overwhelm is going to look and sound and feel different. And you might experience something that you think is really overwhelming that doesn't sound overwhelming to somebody else. And that's first and foremost. So it looks and feels different to everybody, but it can become a performance barrier depending on how you treat it. And so the idea is, first of all, if you're having that sense of overwhelm, whatever that means to you, and the different emotions that may come from it, also attaching yourself to the thoughts around it and how can you neutralize it so that it doesn't become a performance barrier. And that's what I think is the skill to really be practicing, to go, okay, what is really behind this feeling that I have? An introvert might feel very overwhelmed after engaging in a lot of socializing and their energy is depleted. You might feel overwhelmed simply by all of the retail that's around you this time of year. I know I certainly feel overwhelmed by that, like that we've got Christmas ornaments all around us and we haven't even got to Halloween yet. There could be a sense of overwhelm based on your to-do list, what you've got going on at work. And really, depending on the story and the meaning you make around it, it can shut you down. It can create a block that literally prevents you from moving forward. And we want to always be moving forward. So what are some skills and tools we can practice around that? What do you think?
I know this is something that's helped me in so many ways, whether it's on the personal side or the professional side. So I think what would be most helpful for our listeners, Jane, is if there was a specific challenge, how could we leverage some of the tools that you have and that you previously shared to help us with getting through this?
Well, first, recognize when you have that feeling, right? And that if you're telling yourself, I'm overwhelmed. So if we repeat that, obviously it could cause a little bit of a spiral. So I like to just get everyone to anchor in the fact that, okay, it's just a performance barrier. How can we neutralize the meaning around it? Now, again, this isn't about ignoring how people are feeling. It isn't about ignoring what's going on in everyone's life. It's really about acknowledging, okay, do I want to stay in this space or do I want to move through it? And what are some tools and strategies to do it? So first, you got to neutralize it. Don't give it as much meaning as you may have in the past. And then recognize, okay, where is it coming from? How can I further define it in a more clarity? And then ask myself the question, okay, what have been the winning strategies when I've been in this space before? And if you don't have any winning strategies, you don't know what to do, then here, a couple of things you might employ is just going, okay, performance barrier. I can get through this. neutralize it, take a deep breath and pause, and then decide, okay, do I just need to make a list? Is it a list that I need to make of everything that's going on that's causing me this feeling, and develop a plan around it? So what are my priorities? What can I delegate? What can I delete? And then what can I do? So what can I take action on, and just start with one thing? I think that's the most important thing when it comes to our language around overwhelm. And if you're feeling stuck, like, what's one thing you can do to start taking action? And it might be to delegate it, it might be to delete it, or it might be to say, okay, I'm going to spend 15 minutes focused on this one thing. You're smiling.
I am. Well, I'm thinking of my team, because this is something that we consistently talk about. I mean, there's been heightened levels of stress and anxiety over the last 12 months, and certainly that creeps into our personal and professional lives. So we talk about this as a team on a consistent basis. And I was so proud of one of my team members this week. They brought up that they had this performance barrier, something that was causing some chaos in their life. And I was so excited they brought up a new approach to hopefully solving that complication. And I just thought it was so cool that they are trying new things in an effort to try and overcome it. So there's not necessarily a perfect formula or a perfect way to go about it, but that trial and error in that area of exploration, I think, is a key indicator of, growth as individuals in our personal and professional lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you talk about that, because it's really, sometimes it is about changing the way we think about it. And that's really the first tool, is let's change the way we think about overwhelm. Instead of it being this big, huge, humongous thing that could cause us to freeze up or to really be emotionally out of kilter, let's just see it as it's a performance barrier. And with performance barriers, the way we coach is, let's neutralize them. Being hungry is just as much of a performance barrier as being overwhelmed or feeling anxious. It's the story behind it that causes a greater sense of emotional and energy, consequence, really.
So Jane, as we look to wrap up today's conversation, is there anything else you want to leave our audience with?
I love the idea that you try something and see if it works. And if it doesn't, try something else. And look for your support team, but try to just kind of neutralize the meaning you're making around it, or get to the bottom of it, and then develop a plan, but start with one thing, and that'll begin the process.
Awesome. Well, Jane, thanks so much for joining us on this episode.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Have a great weekend.